Okay, welcome in, class. It's so good to see you all. Take your seats, take your seats. Today's going to be a perfect class if you're nosy, because today we're going to be talking about how much I have spent on photography gear since I have started 4 years ago. So I'm going to break down literally every single cost, then give you a grand frickin' total. I'm also going to be telling you about all of the gear that I recommend that you start with, as well as end with. I've also linked all of the beginner camera bodies and camera lenses in my Amazon storefront, as well as all of the pro camera bodies and camera lenses. I had some other photographers look over the list as well and give their opinions because I primarily use Canon. So all of my true insights are with the Canon brand, and I wanted you to have some other insights in other brands if you wanted as well. So all of these lists are other photographers approved. And yeah, so you can go in my Amazon storefront and look at the beginner camera bodies and lenses, or you can look at the pro camera bodies and lenses. And we're going to go through what I think is worth it, what I think is not worth it, as well as kind of break down the finances and make it more realistic for you to purchase. Because I promise you, you're going to see the price tag and you're going to think, I could never get that. But no, no, no. You could probably even get it today. Like, trust, I'm going to show you the easy way to be able to purchase your camera sooner rather than later. Okay, let's get into it. I'm going to be breaking up the spreadsheet for this one. I have a very, very detailed spreadsheet that I keep for tax purposes each year. So we're going to go through all of my expenses and just break down how much I've spent on everything. I'm a bit nervous to look because I know it's going to be a ton, but let's see here. Oh my gosh, that is a lot of money. I didn't realize like how much I've actually spent on gear. This is eye-opening. Okay. Okay. I guess let's just go year by year on what I spent, and then we'll give one big grand total. Okay. Okay. So in 2022, that is when I first started photography. June 1st, 2022 is when I made a very big purchase, which was $7,000. I bought the EOS R5 mirrorless camera and then the 24 to 70 millimeter 2.8 aperture lens. And those together cost $7,000. Gulp. That was actually my very first camera, was the EOS R5 mirrorless, and it's the camera that I still use today. It's the one that I'm filming on currently. And you might be thinking, that's a weird first camera to start with. That's very pro. But I'm going to give you a little bit of a secret on how I was able to afford that camera as my very first camera. Now, just a disclaimer, I am not a financial advisor. This is just something that I did and worked out really well for me. So when I was messaging photographers, like I'm sure a lot of you do now, and asking them about cameras that I should be getting, I never asked them what a beginner camera they would recommend. I always asked them, what are you using? I was way more concerned with what they were currently using with than what they started with. And I know that might seem backwards because when you're starting, people always recommend to get maybe a lower end camera to practice, to learn. But for some reason, I just knew that I was going to be going into photography. So instead of asking people, what would you recommend I start with? I was like, what are you using now? What do you love? What do you want to get in the future? And I made a list of all of those things. And the number one camera that people recommended over and over and over was the Canon EOS R5 mirrorless. So I thought, you know what? I'm effing getting that. I'm doing it. So again, I'm not a financial advisor, but this is exactly what I did, because you bet your bottom dollar, I did not have $7,000 for the camera body or the lens. But what I ended up doing was using Affirm to make monthly payments. So I think it was having me pay like $200 a month for the camera. So I didn't have to pay it all at once. And then what I did was I just booked enough shoots. So I was making over $200 a month, which is actually a lot easier to do than you think. When I was just starting, I was only charging $50 per shoot. So all I needed to do was book 4 shoots a month to be able to pay for the camera. And one thing you'll learn about photography is it's very expensive, but it definitely pays for itself. So that is what I did to get my camera. I got the nicest camera right away and then just did monthly payments. Another thing that I kept thinking about was that I was taking out loans for college, and it felt like kind of a sunk cost. Like, I mean, it wasn't a sunk cost. Like, I got a sales job and it was great, but I looked at purchasing this camera the same way. Taking out a loan was an investment, and I knew that it was going to pay back dividends and more. Again, though, I'm not a financial advisor. And if this is not something that you are truly passionate about and want to get into, then taking out a loan on a camera is a really, really dumb idea because the interest is high. And then if you don't use it, there's really no point. So for me, this made a lot of sense because I knew that I was going to have more than enough money per month through client shoots to be able to pay for the camera. And that's exactly what ended up happening. I ended up making way more than $200 a month. So it kind of felt like I was getting paid to get a camera, which then that ended up happening. Okay, anywho. The other thing that was nice too is it allowed me to charge more quicker because I had the nicer gear. I was able to learn how to use my camera and I was able to get similar images to people who had been in the industry for a long time because I had the exact same equipment as them. And so the learning curve was a little bit smaller than if I were to start with a lower grade camera, which that's not to say that you can't get good images with a lower grade camera, but I know that personally, I really wanted to start with something that I knew these professional level photographers were using. And so I thought, why not me? I want to bust one myth for a lot of people. And that is when people get into photography, they think that they have to get the lowest grade camera to start out with to kind of learn the hard way. But honestly, you do not need to do that. I remember when I went into it, I was messaging photographers, not asking them, what's a beginner camera that you'd recommend? I was asking them, what are you using? What are you shooting on? What do you like? What do you want to get next? Because I didn't want to start where they did a few years ago. I wanted to be where they were now. Some of these newer cameras are way easier to use than some of the older versions. This mirrorless one that I'm using, it is touchscreen. And so changing my settings is so much quicker and easier than some of these older DSLR cameras. And when you think about some of these newer cameras too, I don't want you to think that it's like out of this world for you to get. It is so much more achievable than you think. For me, that was just financing it and then having shoots every single month that were able to pay for the camera. And then because I had such a nice camera, it was easier for me to raise my rates quicker than if I had a lower grade camera. Okay, so let's get back to my spending. Oh gosh. Okay. I'm just going to rattle off some of these and then we'll make some grand totals. I'm going to tell you how much I spent each year, and then I'll visually put a breakdown of all of the expenses. Okay, so in 2022, I spent $8,472.93. That's a lot of money. And then in 2023, I spent $7,740.52. And I'll give the breakdown of where all of that money was allocated to. In 2024, I did not realize it was this much. I'm sick. I spent $22,070.23. Holy cow. Oh, I bought my drone this year. Okay. That makes sense. That was why it was so expensive. And I got another camera body. Okay. Well, that makes sense. So this was a big year for my business because my revenue really, I didn't bring in that much more than I spent. But at the time in 2024, I also had a sales job. So all of the money that I was making in photography, it was so much more easy for me to reinvest it into my business, buy new gear, and really elevate that way. But holy crap, I did not remember it being that much. Whew, okay. This is what I mean when I say it's a very expensive hobby. This last 2025, I spent $17,124.34. That is quite a bit of money. And as I went back and looked at all of this, I honestly didn't realize that I spent this much. I'm now looking through and I'm like, what did I spend so much money on? Oh, this was also the year that I rented a studio space. I forgot about that. Okay. That makes sense. The one good thing, though, about expenses is write-offs. And so essentially, when you are able to write something off, it deducts from your revenue and making your total profit smaller, which puts you in maybe a different tax bracket, taxes you differently, which is kind of the point. Sometimes you want to have a lot of expenses, so that way it puts your profits in a different tax bracket and gives you some benefits that way. So you don't have to pay as much in taxes. So now let's do a big grand total. Let me add up all this. Okay, so from 2022 to 2025, I have spent $55,408.05 on photography. I honestly was not expecting that at all. When I was going through this, I was like, I know that I've spent like, 7,000 a couple times on different cameras, but it can't be that much. 55, like that is insane. So when I say photography is expensive, I mean photography is expensive. But what I want to preface is that I would not be able to be spending this amount on it if it weren't for the money that I was making from it. There is a lot of possibilities and opportunities to make good money. It is very, very lucrative. But one of the other things that I want to note is that there were some years before I was doing this full time where the amount that I was bringing in was pretty equal to the amount that I was spending. Now that I'm full time, my expenses aren't even close to my revenue. I make so much more. But at the time when I was growing and I was starting, I really was investing everything that I was making back into my business. And that's what I would encourage you to do as well. It's something that the more that you put into it, the more that you will get out of it. And seeing that I have put in $55,408.05 is shocking, but honestly makes sense on why I was able to go from not knowing a single thing about photography to going full time in 2.5 years. It is because I really did invest and trust in my business. And that is something that you can do as well. That was very, very eye opening. I will say that throughout my business, I have taken risks and tried new things. There was one specific year where I purchased a office studio space. I think it was $700 a month for the year. And so obviously that adds up, and it's not something I have anymore, but it was a great learning opportunity. And I was able to connect with so many people and clients that I have currently. So you never know what the things you spend on in the past will help you in the future. And so everything that I've spent, whether it has been helpful or not, has really led me to where I am today. So when you're asking people for their opinions on cameras, don't be afraid to ask people what they're using right now, because I think that that is something that you should be striving for, even if you can't purchase it right now, or even if it's something that you don't really want to finance. Totally get it. But I think that you should always be striving to be the best in what you do. And if anything, put it on your vision board and you are more likely to achieve it. Oh, oh, I think that's the bell. Okay, well, that's all for today's class. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.